Hi everyone, and welcome to our virtual meetup on surviving and thriving in the new normal of commerce. So, as already highlighted by Alex from Whitepole, we've got some pretty meaty topics to get through tonight, from the importance of sustainability to the modern shopper, through to the latest in social commerce. So, as the panel get into their thoughts about tonight's topics, please do post any questions you've got in the chat box, and we'll also put those to them. Just a quick one on push on. So we are a full service e-commerce agency that's been established since 2005. We're putting on this event as part of our e-commerce brains of Bristol group. We essentially established that group having joined the Bristol scene back in January, and we're quite keen to bring together the region's top talent to discuss all things commerce, which is a sector that we are passionate about. With our events being virtual for the time being, it has obviously widened the net to people in Bristol and beyond, so thank you for everyone attending this evening. Okay, so it's my pleasure to welcome the panel. Let's start with you, Simon. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I shall be as brief as possible. Yeah, Simon Walton, founder and business strategy director at Push On. We've been doing this kind of thing for years. Started off as a two-man band up in Manchester in 2005 with my business partner and co-director Roy. It's been a natural evolution. Started off out of marketing and moved into being Magento solution partners. I always get this wrong, somewhere around 2010. So we've got a decade of working with Magento very successfully. We're in a bit of a growth phase at the moment, hence why we've been looking around for places where we can expand to. We're very UK focused, and we're very focused on getting engaged in areas like Bristol. As I was just saying before, we've been wanting to move into Bristol for about 2 or 3 years and just been trying to find the right way of going about it. We've also just opened an office in Edinburgh. We're firm believers that you don't need to be London centric. No offence to any Londoners here, but it's a different way of working. There's a load of business to be done as lockdown has shown, and we're keen to sort of work with people to help get it done.
Lovely. Tracy, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Hi guys, my name's Tracy Drain. I'm the e-commerce marketing manager for the international region for Spectrum Brands. Spectrum Brands is a Fortune 500 American parent company. I work for their HPC division, which stands for Home and Personal Care. You will never probably have heard of them as Spectrum Brands. You will know them better as the brands Remington, Russell Hobbs and George Foreman. So basically I head up their e-commerce, and that encompasses a lot in terms of the direct-to-consumer website, digital transformation, Amazon marketing, Amazon advertising, Amazon optimization, as well as marketplaces as well, and kind of channel management. I work with Harla, who you heard is from Bristol. So Harla is one of my colleagues, and we are currently we are now, or will be very shortly, Magento merchants. I should say I know Push On. I've worked with Push On for quite some time in previous roles as well, not just with Magento projects, but even prior to, I guess becoming Magento partners back in, I think 2008, when we've worked on video marketing and kind of social media marketing projects in the very, very early days. So yeah, that's me.
Lovely. Alex, let's go Alex Weston.
Yeah, cool. Nice to meet you all. I'm Alex. I'm a channel manager at Brightpearl. So we're actually a Bristol founded retail operations platform. So really we cover everything that happens after the buy button for e-commerce brands. So we grew out of Bristol. I'm not actually sure what year we were founded in. I probably should know that, but there you go. And we're now a UK and US based business. who kind of straddle both continents. So yeah, it's really quite a pleasure to be here and representing a Bristol-based company with the first instalment of Bristol Meetup. We've been push on partners for a long while now, so we really enjoy working with the team. And thanks a lot for having us.
You're welcome. Alex Sheppard.
Hi there, pleased to meet you all. So I work for Magento at Adobe. I've been in the team there for probably about 3 and a bit years now. My role is really about sort of working with prospective customers to understand where they are in the market, what their challenges are, get a real feeling for where they're going, what the opportunity is, and then hopefully positioning Magento as a suitable solution to work for them. Obviously, we were acquired by Adobe a couple of years ago. That's been quite interesting. It's opened my eyes up to a wealth of other technologies that sit around Magento and elsewhere in the market. But equally, prior to joining Magento, I worked for probably about 4 or 5 years in the systems integrator world, so very much Simon and Tim's space. In fact, I've known Simon for many years now. He's thrown me under a bus more than once or twice at these events. So yeah, no, I've known the guys for quite a long time. And prior to that, I used to work in advertising strategy, again, predominantly with retailers. So I've pretty much throughout the last 20 years always been around that retail space, but it's very much moved into commerce and more importantly, sort of experience-driven commerce over recent years.
Cool, thanks, Alex. All right then, let's kick off. Okay, so starting with fulfillment. So fulfillment is gaining prominence as a driver of consumer satisfaction with online retailers. I think we can all agree it must be smarter, closer to the consumer and automated. With that in mind, how can brands turn fulfillment into a competitive advantage? Alex Sheppard, would you like to start us off on this one?
By all means, by all means. I know I mentioned experience a moment ago, actually, and I think that's really critical because a lot of people think a lot about their digital experience, but one of the things that I think is really starting to come to the fore is about the overall experience, and I think that categorically needs to include fulfillment as well as things like post-sale service, etc. You know, I think we need to not think about things in such a siloed manner, but think about how we can just broadly improve that overall experience. And fulfillment has always been one of those areas which is a headache. That moment of, oh crap, is the DPD driver going to lob that expensive new kettle over the fence and actually damage it on its way down? So I think it's really an opportunity for a lot of people to think differently about it. One of the things that's really excited me in recent years was Amazon Key. And I'm sure that most of you will have heard about this, but they obviously have the capability to have smart locks on homes so that delivery drivers can effectively let themselves in. They've actually done a huge deal with General Motors to enable smart locks on tens of thousands of cars in the US to enable people to literally use their car as a locker. Now, Amazon have always been ahead of the curve when it comes to thinking about these things, ranging from drones through to this. And in reality, I do think they're really onto something there. I was actually at an IMRG event about a week ago, and I was speaking to a chap from Assa Abloy, or Yale, as most of you will probably know them. And it was really interesting to hear that they're doing a partnership with Waitrose at the moment. And as part of this partnership, they are basically offering smart locks to the homes so that the Waitrose drivers can effectively let themselves in to deliver the shopping. Now, one thing that really stood out about this proposition for me was that they will be insuring the house for the duration of time that they have it unlocked, because that was always one of the question marks I had over smart locks. And actually, I think that's really interesting. So I think it's a space to watch. I think it's something to think about. And I think we will see more and more opportunities to really offer a much better experience when it comes to the fulfillment and delivery side of things.
Yeah, completely agree. Thanks, Alex. All right, who should we pick? Tracy, do you wanna have your say?
Yeah, sure. I mean, from a client side perspective, and undergoing the certain things that we're doing now, we're not just kind of this is not just a replatforming project that we're undertaking at the moment. This is a complete transformation from what has historically been completely wholesaler, manufacturer to retailers, that heavy reliance on retailers to deliver those products to consumers, whether that be an in-store purchase or a buy, like with Argos, buy online, pick up in store, or have that delivered to them. And I think times are changing in that regard now, with regards to it just being about because our business is so very much used to just fulfilling pallet orders to retailers. It's quite a big shift in mindset and a shift in processes to have that enabled. And certainly when you talk about these businesses not working, or these areas of businesses not working in silos anymore, it's important that finance communicate, marketing communicate, operations communicate, supply chain communicate, logistics communicate, and that you have these things nailed probably before you undertake a lot of maybe other projects, because essentially this is your fundamentals. This is the whole reason. This is like the last mile kind of stuff. This is the make or break stuff, the fulfillment. You can be as creative as you want on your website. You can create the best personalized experiences. You can have the slickest marketing. You can, do amazing remarketing, get them to the site, get them to convert on the site. But if you're falling down at that point of order fulfillment and not delivering to those expectations, then you're going to have issues going forward. They're not going to really want to buy from you again, because the conduct or how that is fulfilled reflects on who they're buying it from. They don't really think, if they don't get that experience, they don't always think poorly necessarily about the fulfillment company. It can be affected on the brand, and I do see that a lot, even with even with Amazon, when Amazon don't always get it right, especially during Prime Day and peak buying periods, when they employ drivers, anybody with a pulse really, that that can make sure that they meet that order criteria. You start seeing product reviews come through that are basically disparaging because they've had a poor delivery experience, because consumers don't always equate that actually we're talking about a product review here, not a service review, and it's all encompassing. So I think it's important to get those strategies aligned, and I know that when I've done this historically with another business that I worked for that wasn't necessarily direct to consumer enabled, when they came direct to consumer enabled and we started bringing in better services, so going from the standard 3 to 5 day delivery was all we offered on the site, for example, and then going, okay, we'll now introduce free delivery for a minimum spend. We'll now introduce next day delivery. We'll now introduce Saturday delivery, time delivery, and those kind of things. And then we click and collect. We wanted to kind of expand those. As you add more of those pieces to that puzzle, you tend to find you attract more customers, and it nudges the needle on your conversion. And I think a lot of businesses underestimate that element of how it can impact conversion, because if you look at Amazon, that's how Amazon over the years have built up, have built up their kind of following from Prime, from that Prime membership. Never underestimate the power of Prime membership. Most Prime members are not signed up because they get the free music. They're not signed up because they get the free TV. They're signed up because they can get something next day, pretty much millions of items next day, and it's quick and it's convenient, and they spent years kind of attracting people to check the prices, got them signed up to the Prime program, and then that's become a big driver now. And we see it that on average on Amazon, an Amazon Prime account holder converts at 74%. versus an average of, I think it's about 15 or 16% for a non-prime customer. That's on Amazon. So that is the power of what essentially order fulfillment can offer there. And they're not always the cheapest on price. People will buy on convenience of that order fulfillment, and they will pay a little bit more for that convenience. So I think you know, that a lot of businesses miss that in the fundamental part of when the re-platforming, they think it's all about marketing, it's always all about selling more products, but you're only really going to kind of move the needle on that when you've got this bit nailed. So I would say the more you offer, and always have backups, never just rely on one carrier as well. I've fallen foul of that historically, a reliance on Royal Mail picking up by 4 p.m. and that's not happened. So, you know, there should always be like a fail safe or a fallback there, more for a brand reputation or a retailer reputation issue more than anything else.
Thanks, Tracy.
No worries.
Okay, Alex Weston.
Yeah, I mean, Tracy and Alex have touched on some really big points there, I think. And definitely, I think a lot of what Tracy was saying about, one, consumers kind of willing to spend more for a guaranteed good experience. I think we did some research with Trustpilot and found that I think the majority of people are willing to spend 15% more if they're guaranteed a good experience. So it certainly is true that if you know that there's that convenience there and that people are guaranteed to get products when they expect them, then they'll spend a little more to make that happen. So price isn't always the kind of the issue for people when it comes to buying things. And I guess like one of the trends that we've seen is a greater flexibility when it comes to order fulfillment. So things like buy online, pick up in store, and curbside pickup, they're becoming increasingly prominent. I think some research that we did before Christmas showed that 41% of shoppers plan to increase their use of these types of offerings in the next 6 months. So it's definitely going to be something that people look to do more of. And I guess from a merchant perspective as well, offering these different ways of fulfilling and buy online, pick up in store, and attracting people back into brick and mortar is going to be a really useful tool post lockdown, whenever that will be. Obviously, we'll kind of keep our fingers crossed that it will be soon, but it's going to be a pretty significant opportunity for those who do have physical stores to kind of draw people back to the high street and get people in. So I think thinking about different ways of fulfilling and different ways for people to kind of get the product in their hand is going to be crucial for a lot of retailers. And I think maybe the other panelists have got a little bit more to say on this particular point, but ensuring those fulfillment options are clear but integrated into the checkout cycle is pretty key. So, you know, as well as making sure you have accurate stock information to avoid overselling and all of those things, and automating the back office to make things more accurate. But you know, making sure that the expectations are clear on the website and that you can actually fulfill on those things is absolutely massive for retailers as well.
Thanks, Alex. Simon.
It's interesting. When we think about fulfillment, and I think I'm going to call Alex number 2 or something, Alex Weston, we've just touched on some really interesting things. We were talking a lot about fulfillment from largely a website kind of transaction. I find myself quite interested in the nature of the high street as well. Do you want to go to the shops and carry stuff home with you? It's great to go to the shops. People want that personal relationship. You want to go and try and buy. But what about, are you going to go into the shops and sort of like try and say, okay, that's the right size, that colour, we don't carry it here, we'll just have it delivered to the doorstep? Where is fulfillment going to go from that? What's the nature of it? We talked about curbside pickup as well. Very good. I like the idea of it being dropped at home. Still can't quite get my head around the Amazon lock, Amazon key thing. That's just a little bit freaky. But I can see how that can be working. Certainly the insurance piece, there's going to be some weird dude who's going to get through the check and do something bad, and be prepared for that. What was the other point on that? So, and it's also the ability as well for that. If you can hear dogs in the background, it's my colleagues going nuts because somebody's at the door. So I have so many children, none of them answering the damn door. So
Amazon.
I was going to say it's the Amazon guy.
we're going to fulfill a smack in the mouth for them sometime. But the masters of it, and this is a crucial point that Tracy touched upon, is the customer relationship piece. AO do it masterfully, I think. So like they customize the delivery to you, and while they're doing that for your convenience, they're just ratcheting up the amount of money that they're going to be taking from you. So do you want to take away the packaging? Fair enough. Okay, that's another 15 quid. And we'll do your phone call to make sure everything's okay for you. By the way, can we sell you some insurance? So all of those human touch points are actually adding value to the customer and also to the basket size as well. So I'm going to just pass over at this point. I'm going to get my dogs to bugger off. So I'll hand it back to Tim.
Thanks, Simon. Lovely. Okay, this is an interesting one. So sustainability is taking on quite a renewed importance for modern shoppers. Customers are becoming more aware of the role their purchasing decisions have on the Earth's limited resources. So how can brands find ways to weave sustainable practices into their products, their fulfillment strategies, and their marketing? I think Alex Weston will kick this one off with you.
It's such an interesting topic, and obviously, you know, with David Attenborough and all of the different things that are happening around, you know, being more environmentally conscious, it's absolutely massive with being more sustainable. I think one area that isn't kind of focused on outside of like recyclable packaging and all of those types of things is secondhand goods. It's an area where a lot of merchants have started to put in some effort. So basically like reselling items to new owners to kind of extend the shelf life of some of those goods. This obviously can be a massive adaptation for retailers to start some of these things, and it's not really right for every retailer. But talking about things like buyback schemes, so a way that retailers can kind of extend the life of their products. If consumers can return an item, it can either be resold to someone else, donated to a charity, or recycled into a new product that can be sold by the retailer again. So ethically speaking, I guess this is probably one of the best ways that that retailers can be involved in some more sustainable practices. There's some really, really innovative stuff in this kind of realm as well. So there's the whole idea of kind of re-commerce. I think there's a company in the US called Rent the Runway. And basically you can rent evening wear or occasion wear, and then you have the option to buy it after you've worn it for the event that you wear it for. But obviously for a company, that means that they only have to kind of hold a limited amount of stock, because they're probably going to get these items back. They know they're going to get it back as well. So this idea of re-commerce or kind of recycling or reselling products that people have been buying are really interesting. So I think John Lewis is actually a household name that a lot of people might recognize, obviously, of someone who's kind of launched this recently, a buyback initiative of products that have been bought. I think you have to have bought them from John Lewis, but they'll buy them back from you again and recycle them. And that can obviously increase the longevity of the products that can be reused, but obviously means that retailers can be more conscious of the fact that they can recycle some of those materials as well. I was actually looking today at a company called the London Stock Exchange. So they've actually built recycling and donation into their business model. So if you check them out, as part of their subscription to socks, once you're kind of done with them, you can send them back, and if they're good enough and in still good enough condition, they'll donate them to a charity. And if they're not, then they'll recycle the materials and make it into another textile for use somewhere else. So it's a really interesting area. And then just outside of that, we also work with companies like Natural Baby Shower. They've focused on reducing plastic packaging, offering products made with sustainable or recycled materials, or participating in completely outside of that, like charitable missions outside of their core business as well. So I think there's other ways that you can weave sustainability and other kind of charitable missions, not even necessarily within the business model like the stock exchange does. But to other companies, it's completely at the core. So a company that we work with called Weaver Green, they make their rugs completely out of recycled water bottles. So it's like there's two ends of the spectrum. I think you can touch on things that are more like charitable endeavors, but you can also just have it as the core of your business. And the whole thing is just made out of recycled water bottles is a really cool way to be more sustainable and kind of do good for the earth as well. So definitely a really interesting area of e-commerce, and a few different ways that retailers are kind of helping out with that.
Yeah, definitely. Put up the link to the SOC website on the chat.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll shoot it over. Yeah, that's cool.
Good. Simon, do you wanna go next?
It was interesting following on from the water bottle thing. I was just thinking then about where I've touched upon brands or products that have made me go ooh, and they're also got an ethical bent to it. I was doing research for a pitch for us, and I was looking at recycled products, and there's a company in London called Elvis and Kress. Kress spelt Kresse. They make high spec handbags and wallets and stuff out of recycled fire hoses. And their brand story is so spot on. I don't know how they came across it, but typically what happens with an old fire hose, it just goes straight into landfill. There's not much else you can do with it. But they can craft handbags and wallets. These are not cheap, by the way. But again, it's a premium item, and they're pitching it at that. And their Facebook marketing was bob on. As soon as I'd hit their site, I was getting really rich content to my Facebook feed over and over again, really spot on stories, and talking about donations that they would make. They donate, I think, 50% of the profits to fire brigade charities, something like that. Really, really very interesting. I'm not bought anything from them yet, so I don't use handbags. I mean, this isn't that keen either. But here I am telling you about it. And that whole word of mouth thing is somebody on this call is going to go and look at that site and think, well, you know what, they're really quite nice. And they are. It's really nice stuff. They take the metal bits off the hose as well, and they make brass candle holders, which look really amazing as well. So they've got a real heritage story there. On the other end of it, one thing I found was I like my music, and I like quite loud, noisy music. So there is particular bands that I follow, and they're super principled. All their t-shirts are made with guaranteed ethically sourced, no sweatshop stuff. But they're turning out these t-shirts, cheaper and better. The quality of the cotton is bob on. The prints stay really well. It washes really well. But it was actually cheaper than other bands who were sort of like perhaps pushing the profit pretty hard as well. So that's what's affecting me as slightly grizzled 50-year-old that I'm noticing in that demographic. And then conversations with my children as well. I've got an 18-year-old daughter who's extremely focused on how she dresses, but she's perhaps influenced by me and her mother. But it's not about Boohoo and Pretty Little Thing for us. It's looking at old styles, etc. So she loves a rummage around an old charity shop or something like that, finding unique pieces. And I'm thinking about where she can buy products. So I couldn't swear as to what percentage of the market is being driven by this. There's going to be so many people who are going to be going, I need something for tomorrow night when we're allowed to go out for a drink, and I want it to be £3 and I want it delivered in the morning, then I'm going to send it back. That market will be very difficult to ship. But there's an increasingly growing, powerful market around the brand story, the ethics, the sustainability of it. And I can see a lot of entrants coming into this over the next couple of years, certainly driven by some of the thinking out of lockdown.
Thanks, Simon. Tracy?
Yeah, it's a shame actually that we couldn't bring our shopper marketing manager on as well, because she's working on a sustainability project at the minute. We are, I think we've now successfully, Hala might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but we now successfully got rid of all our plastic packaging, or we're in the process of working with a business to remove all plastic from our Remington brand packaging. So we've got a packaging sustainability project ongoing at the moment. I know that it's had the sustainability element has had quite an impact on certain products that we sell on Amazon. They do like a frustration-free packaging like project, whereby again theirs has to that packaging has to meet certain sustainability criteria, and you have to meet certain regulations and things like that. And but in the side of that some people don't see when they just think of it as sustainability is that product then becomes a product in its own right on Amazon that nobody else can, because on Amazon it's a marketplace as well as selling to Amazon, selling on Amazon. You've got that competition from third-party sellers. When you are part of their frustration-free packaging or sustainable packaging programs, like the SIOC and things like that, that gives you exclusivity, which essentially limits the competition on that platform, which we all know is fairly significant in terms of the number of shoppers that are on there. So yeah, and I mean, Simon then was just talking about his daughter, and it's really quite funny because we've got daughters that are the same age and are very, very similar in terms of characteristics. They are you know, not the traditional pretty little thing boohoo, although, you know, maybe a few years ago when she was finishing high school, she was very much influenced by her peers. Now she's kind of taken a different path, and you tended to find that she will do a similar thing, go for one-off pieces, and they are, when you speak to them about, and we kind of see it from a different light because we do e-commerce day in, day out, right? So we tend to overthink or overanalyze the way they behave online, and the things that the shops that they go to, and the things that make that drive their purchase decisions. And I see it a lot with my daughter when I watch how she interacts with brands and what she buys and where she buys from, and a rationale behind certain things and the things that she talks about. There was a lady that she was into kind of creating charity shop clothing, and or basically taking old clothing and making new clothing out of old things, you know, different materials. And she during the first lockdown took to, instead of make t-shirts, bikinis, and all kinds of other things that she would make as part of this Facebook business, and that she had her own small kind of micro e-commerce store, as it were. She started making face masks out of old clothing. So obviously they would be washed with, you know, the disinfecting powders and all the rest of it that kill all the bacteria. And then they were making face masks before face masks were even, you know, when it was still a thing, the way you were looked at in the street like you'd lost your mind because you were wearing a face mask. She was doing this, she cottoned onto this.
Alex's point, you know, the whole reloved piece actually really interests me. I got a note from Barber the other day launching their reloved range, and I do think that will be an interesting new avenue for people upcycling things. I think it really will be an area that some people can capitalize on. But I'll tell you what, I mean, I think equally Simon's point about the split between people who value their ethics, who value, you know, the sustainability type angle, versus those who are focused on convenience. I want it now, I want it quick, I want it cheap, I want it disposable. And I think, you know, we will see people competing in different areas based on that. But I definitely feel that there will be more of a focus on the values and ethics side of things, and obviously sustainability will be a huge part of that. And personally, my big bugbear is when I order something like that, that comes in a little box and it comes in a massive package surrounded by plastic or polystyrene padding, which is all going to go straight to landfill ultimately. That frustrates me, and that is enough to make me as a consumer not order from a brand. And I think that's probably one area where a lot of brands do need to think very carefully. I get it's a pain to have multiple boxes and from a pick, pack and dispatch point of view, picking the right one. But I think that is an area where a lot of brands and retailers will hopefully start to think a bit more carefully about how they do package, how they do fulfill that. Because certainly for me, it's a bit of a turn-off for a brand if they are overly using non-biodegradable materials.
Can I ask a question on that, Alex, about what your thoughts are in terms of it, shopper choice versus it being enforced? Because Steve Beckett's posted a link in the chat, which is a news article, and I actually saw it this morning, and it relates to the industry that I'm in, which is appliances. And I know that there was an EU law. It looks like they're bringing it into UK law as well, but it was an EU law where they talked about making certain domestic appliances last for 10 years, and they have like a consumer right to repair. So if you buy a washing machine and it breaks down within 10 years, the manufacturer, the consumer has a right to repair. So obviously that feeds into that sustainability issue. And yes, whilst you have got like quite at the moment a significant audience that are really based on that convenience, that will shop on Amazon and have the driver make multiple trips with small boxes in huge boxes, like you've just said, you're gonna get them. But do you feel maybe that this might be this sustainability piece might be become more of a law or enforced by like the EU or by the UK government, moreover than it become about consumer choice? I mean, I know I've read lots about sustainability, about up and coming the next gen of e-commerce shoppers. Sustainability is becoming more and more of an important thing, and if that's not enough to make brands react, maybe the law will trump that and the law will come first.
Yeah, I mean, to be frank, our government has some pretty tough targets on itself to improve environmental sustainability. We just need to look at the 2030 electric cars rule. And actually, I think it's going to be super interesting to see what happens with HGVs and stuff at the minute, because rather randomly, I know someone who owns a haulage firm, and I'm hearing that from a haulage and even farming community way, there is no real electric alternative. The restrictions are too great there, it's too difficult. So I think it will be interesting to see what the government does from that point of view. I can totally sympathise with that, by the way. So I've literally just had about 2.5-year-old dishwasher pack up, and it was perfectly good apart from one thing on the board's gone, and AO told me how to throw it away, and that was it. Order a brand new one. And it does seem like such a ridiculous waste. I personally, on a personal level, am hugely in favour of a sort of right to repair type law. But whether the government will go for that, that's a tough one. I think they've also will be pushing to try and make the economy move as quickly as possible right now. So whether that will be a bit contrary to that drive, I guess waits to be seen.
I guess it's finding that balance. They've been known to do U-turns before, haven't they? So what they might be enforcing now in a right to repair law, you never know. They might pull the plug when it's not generating them enough in the economy.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I guess in a way it's whether the two are mutually exclusive. Like my fridge broke after 2.5 years just the other week, similar to your dishwasher, Alex, and I was absolutely fuming about it. But I also like still the convenient buying on Amazon. But I guess my point is that can you be a sustainable shopper and someone who buys into these kind of brands and still enjoy the convenience of things like Amazon? Are they mutually exclusive? I don't know. Maybe there'll be some kind of convergence of the two sort of buying habits at some point, and the market will kind of force us go that kind of route. But yeah, I think it's definitely a really interesting time to be discussing these two things, because they are almost kind of a paradox in themselves. So
yeah, I do think that. Sorry, go on, Alex.
I was going to say I did buy into the AO lovely insurance afterwards, in part because I thought, well, at least they might be inclined to repair the damn thing if, you know, it goes again, because they're probably going to prefer to put their hand in their pocket for a part and a fix rather than tell me I need an entirely new machine.
Yeah.
true.
But yeah, anyway, sorry, Tracy.
Yeah, well, we're actually that's part of what we're doing with this new with the project that we're undertaking at the moment. It's not just about e-commerce and selling stuff, although, you know, that's great, and that's the utopia, because that is what pays the bills after all, is the product sales. But as part of the project that we're undertaking now, we're overhauling our product registration process, in terms of when consumers come on at the moment, because it's not a great UX, and it's not at the moment with our current site. People can either take it or leave it, but actually our products do come with fairly decent, for small domestic appliances, they come with quite significant you know, warranties, and certain money back guarantees and things like that, and we're making that registration process easier, and we are streamlining, and we've got which is part of a bigger company project in terms of our overall customer services, in making warranty claims for faulty products, and when things go wrong, and when things aren't you know, aren't quite right and aren't quite as they should be, to try and dispel that disposable consumerism that we have, where, you know, where it's not kind of a make, do, amend culture like it was back in the day, and essentially what that opens up is a world of opportunity for us in terms of spare part sales, and you know, because we do run the risk of, if our products aren't lasting the duration, and the you know, the kind of getting killed off within 2 years, then we've got the problem of, oh, people are going to go, it didn't last as long as I wanted it to, it didn't perform, I'm going to go and buy a competitor brand, for example, and then we lose them, you know, to competitors, whereby if we do buy into this kind of life cycle of the product, extending the life cycle of the product, it opens up opportunities for replacement parts and spares, kettle filters, those kind of things, you know. So what it might take with one hand, essentially it does give with the other.
Makes sense.
Lovely, thanks for that, guys. We'll probably do another meetup, I think, on this topic, because I think we could probably talk for hours. And Tom, thanks for the question. We'll put this to the panel at the end, just so we can get through a few more of the topics. Okay, right. This one should be a good one for Tracy. So there's been an explosion of buy now, pay later e-commerce solutions, you know, essentially encouraging online shoppers to spend more and keep more. I think we're finding now that the buy now and pay later services are being better regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. So I guess what we're looking at really is, how can brands be more responsible for the spending and financial well-being of their customers, and more so, should they be responsible for it? We'll go to you first, Simon, on this one.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I was talking to Beauty Bay a couple of years ago when they were deploying Klarna, I think, and they did some really interesting stuff. Beauty Bay, they take some really, really big risks, and it tends to pay off with them a lot around UX as well. But they looked at Klarna and deployed it, and the risk to them there, I'll talk about it from a purely commercial basis to start off with, was they were worried whether it would cannibalize payday spend. Would it just be a transition of money that was spent on payday to be going via Klarna, so they'd lose the fees that they would pay to Klarna? As it turned out, it actually did benefit them all round. They saw almost no loss of the payday spend. You know, the typical, I've been paid, getting me fancy clothes on, I'm going to the pub. So at least I will be soon. And they found it didn't sort of like cannibalise that. And the problem they're finding, I mean, it is sort of like doing good things on conversion. I think it depends on where your products are, how expensive your products are. So if you're on high volume, low cost kind of things, you can get a serious sort of uplift in basket size on that. You know, if I've got a pair of jeans in there, do you know what? It's paid in 3 installments. I can afford to get a shirt and a pair of shoes to go with it or something like that. You know, you're going to get that uplift. When you're looking at something like a mattress and you're paying grand for a mattress, you're not going to get 2 mattresses too often. But you're more likely to convert, so you might see an uplift in sort of like conversion rate. Again, cost associated with it. I think most of this has been associated with fast fashion in large part. I think you've got something like 25% of users 18 to 24, 15 to 50%, 25 to 36. The problem the FCA have seen, it's predominantly female as well, is messing around with the Klarna app. And again, they might want to sort of like think about their targeting with that. Because it's nice, I like the idea of not only can you do the sort of like layaway scheme kind of thing, I can go and buy this and I can pay over 3-4 transactions, happy days. But also here's a market via the Klarna app of all people who are hooked up to Klarna. So it's almost like building a virtual department store there. However, putting stuff in front of me, slightly grizzled 50-something-year-old bloke who likes noisy things and pints of beer, stick in pretty little thing and boohoo in front of me might satisfy a requirement I have, but not generally. So maybe a little bit of thought about that. But it's 75% female users, 90% fashion and footwear. The problem being is I think about 1 in 10 users have credit issues elsewhere. Klarna just got valued, I think that in September they got valued for investment about 10 billion. They've just taken another round of investment, they've raised another billion or so. They're after 500 million, but people are so into it because of the American growth. They raised $1 billion in investment, so they've been valued at 31 billion. This is a really interesting space. Problem in the UK is, I think it's perhaps overkill. Some people are trying to equate them with sort of like payday loan kind of things. Now, I suspect the FCA is going to get in on regulating spend. You've got to have approved, there's got to be a finance check, which might seem like, well, it's small transactions. That's going to be overkill for that to actually go to some kind of credit check associated with that. I think realistically, there are so many services these days, credit score type things, where you can have fast interaction. This person wants to put 150 quid over 3 payments in the next month, 2 months. Is their credit good enough? Do they have outstanding debt? I see very little technological problem with fulfilling that. So I think the UK might lead with, because there was such a furore about the payday loans issues, but I think that will go through. I'm fairly certain there's so much money in it. The various providers won't have a problem with saying, do you know what, we'll just hook up with somebody and do that credit check on the fly. I think it will be fine. I think it's a good thing to do just to make sure that people aren't finding themselves with late fees as being one of the issues, but sort of like growing subtle debt rather than taking out, 10 grand you can't afford, multiples of 50 quid becomes a problem as well. It's a problem that is easily dealt with. I say easily, it's dealable with.
Yeah. Okay, Tracy?
Yeah, I think for me on this, it very much depends on what brand or retailer message you want to portray, really. I know from like a Russell Hobbs perspective, we want to come across as like a warm, friendly brand, as probably do the most brands, but as part of our kind of brand makeup, brand guidelines, it's that inclusiveness with the consumer. I don't really feel that this responsibility should lie with the brands or retailers on this, because if you're talking about BNPL, you're kind of thinking about Klarna, but then again, you've got other payment providers like PayPal Credit. If you don't think at the time that you're adding PayPal functionality into your site that you necessarily need to think about responsibilities of being like a kind of responsible lender, really, or because again, PayPal users can apply for PayPal Credit and pay over 3 months and all those kind of things. So I just think it becomes unmanageable for brands and retailers to kind of think about that as well. And also going back to kind of the demographics, it really does, for me, it really does depend on the products and also the market in which it's sold, because we obviously we sell globally, and the attitudes towards credit or buy now pay later is very, very different across all of those regions. Spain, for example, would struggle if they haven't got the money, they don't tend to buy it. That's kind of tends to be how it works in Spain, and quite a few other places as well. And Germany would, they have quite stringent regulations on things like this. But yeah, certainly within the UK, when Simon was talking about brands and the age, you need to kind of be really careful, because if they are getting themselves, it's like the old days of, like, you remember like Freeman's catalogues, when people would run up a catalogue bill on the tick. You don't want to become that, like the one of those companies that are just doling out products on the never really. But then again, I look at the price points of some of our products within our range, and I think, well, yes, obviously that would be useful. So maybe you want to consider it at certain price points, and also consider the function of that product as well. Like fashion, it's quite, you've got fast fashion, it's quite disposable, but when somebody needs a kettle, for example, and you're British, we drink a lot of tea, your kettle goes bump and you need a kettle next day, and but you're not getting paid for another week, so you're not going to wait a week or so to kind of get a kettle. And those are the kind of things that need to be taken into consideration when I guess when implementing something like this. But for me, I feel that, like, the responsibility of that is quite a weight to bear for retailers.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. Alex Weston.
Yeah, I never really thought about my kettle just dying, like what would happen. So it's definitely an important consideration. But I think it's such a hard topic to kind of think about. Who's kind of responsible for the well-being of the customers? Does it lie with the buy now pay later service, or does it lie with the retailer? I think one of the key things, the biggest criticism that I've seen of these types of schemes is that consumers felt that they didn't know what they were getting into or signing up for. And I guess from that perspective, as much clarity as possible from either end is kind of going to be key here. So I mean, the offerings themselves are hugely beneficial to both merchants and consumers. Simon touched on some of the points that make it so beneficial for a merchant, and I think for consumers as well. It means that they're able to get products that maybe is quicker that they might not be able to otherwise. So I think just kind of ensuring that the message and the terms are as clear as possible to the end consumer is probably one of the first steps that retailers can take. I hadn't really considered that, with a lot of different, if you have a lot of different payment services or offerings on your website, that it is quite a burden for a retailer to kind of manage that themselves. So I think there probably does need to just be a better collaboration between both the retailer and the platforms and the services themselves to kind of make those things clear. But I think that's just based on the biggest criticism that I've seen, being that consumers felt that they didn't really understand the terms of what they were getting up for and getting slapped with these kind of late fees as well. And I guess a lot of that will be kind of solved through sort of automated credit checks and things like that that Simon was talking about too. So as it kind of becomes more embedded in the way that we operate and the way that retailers operate as well, then I think it will become an easier thing to manage, hopefully.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Alex, Sheppard.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a tough one, the ethics around this, really. You know, we do sadly live in a buy now, pay later culture in this country. You know, as Tracy said, different territories, it's very different. But in the UK, that is what people expect. You know, to Simon's point, I've worked with Eco Shoes based out of Manchester, targeting 16 to 24-year-old women going for a night out. They wanted shoes for this Saturday, not for the Saturday after payday. So the reality was things like Klarna that we implemented there works incredibly well for them. I guess where I've landed on this is it really comes down to how it's being charged, because at the end of the day, you know, people will come and buy on a credit card if they need to, you know, assuming they can get that credit in the first instance. They will naturally extend their debt. And I think we do all as consumers, as individuals, have to take responsibility for our own actions there. I think that as a merchant, as a retailer, I think probably where they can help and maybe clear their conscience to an extent is if they're offering, you know, interest free and that kind of thing. You know, I think about the items that I buy on the tick, and you know, pretty much every time I buy a couch, I buy it on pay monthly, purely because you can and it doesn't cost me anymore. So I kind of end up doing that, and usually it's been when I've been moving house and I've got other things to spend the money on, so it just frees it up a bit. For me, actually, you know, that is help. That is a competitive differentiation. It definitely works, and I do not feel that the retailer should particularly feel responsible for enabling people to develop so much debt there. I think where it really does become a problem is where there's significant finance charges involved, and I know that V12 and some of the others, you can dial up and kind of actually profit from those interest rates as well. And for me, I think that's where the responsibility kicks in, is if people are really profiting from people paying on the tick, that's where I think they need to be aware of it, and where there probably will be backlash in the future.
Good. Okay, we'll move on. Sorry, we're a little bit over the allotted time slot, but you know, it's an interesting conversation. Okay, so obviously reaching new customers is important, but the rising competition for online attention and the cost of customer acquisition has reinforced the value of customer retention. How can brands prioritize their existing customers and convert them into brand ambassadors? Tracy, we'll start with you.
Thanks very much. So yeah, this for us is quite a big project that I touched on before, in terms of what we're doing with making the most out of our product warranty sign up, basically product registration. We obviously are a heritage brands that have traditionally just sold via retailers, don't have much by way of direct to consumer other than via these certain retailers. But I think it never does really to put all your eggs in one basket. I've always been, as much as I say I have a love-hate relationship with Amazon. I think they're great at what they do, and I admire them for the way in which they've grown the business. They don't really necessarily look at the competition. If they've got that much money, that if they can just have the most outlandish ideas, do it, and if it doesn't work, bin it off. Not everybody can afford that luxury, but I think what you've got to remember is when these consumers are shopping on marketplaces and not directly with the brand, is they aren't your customers, they are the retailer's customers. So we're doing quite a bit of a significant piece of work at the minute, which is making the most of these product registrations. So it's inconsequential to me whether at the moment, whether they buy it online or offline, whether they go in store. What we're going to try and capture essentially is this product registration sign up, we give them an extra year's warranty if they register the products on our website. And what that does is it gives us a name, a location to that person, because we collect certain data points on them, and it then allows us to do to understand what products they own. One of the things I love, and I know this is not a sales pitch, I know I'm here to talk about existing customers, but one of the really cool things that I've discovered with Magento is the personalization that you can do, or the customer segmentation that you can do, and the integration it has with the likes of .digital now, which means that we can take somebody else's customer, if you like, or a retailer's customer. They are still our customers, they're using our brand at the end of the day. So as far as I'm concerned, they're a brand customer. They may not have purchased a product through us, but they are a brand consumer. So in that regard, then we hold them data points, and when they next visit our website, and if they give us the permission to email market to them, we can do lots of cool things like, you know, they've bought a kettle, they've registered the kettle, they may have never seen the matching toaster in store, because if they're in Currys have the toasters on one section, the kettles at the other. You know, they might not realise that you can buy that as a set. So there's opportunity there to show them there's a coffee maker that matches that, and you know, because British they love it, they love to complete a look in the kitchen, everything has to match. It's a real kind of thing that they love to do. And we noticed that when we did this kind of bundling on Amazon, it increased the attachment rates of matching products by 75%. We never really had the capabilities of not only doing that on our own website to customers that were buying from us directly, but also now this will open up an opportunity to market products to these consumers that have not essentially bought from us, and make these retailer consumers our consumers. And it's not, what we're doing with the site is not just about selling them products. Here's, you might also like, you know, complete the look or whatever. It's also about creating a community, and with recipes, things that they can create with the products that they've bought. They can upvote recipes, they can you know, they can feed back on them, they can then interact with us social, with hashtags to show us what they've made. I mean, I do it all the time with products, you know, from our brands that I own. I'm more aware that I'm doing it because of what I do, but people do this all the time. So there's opportunity there to not work multi-channel anymore, but use all this data together, and basically make that a better experience. Product reviews as well is a massive undertaking. Bringing things from other channels as well. Things like live chat is a gold mine. So increasing the customer service and giving them more ways to contact you, but that's also a gold mine for marketing as well. We talk about, you know, improving the customer experience, making sure that, you know, they're getting, we're meeting SLAs in terms of responding to them and things like that. But these places can also become a gold mine for marketing. Looking at into Amazon product reviews, looking at into Amazon question and answers, and a lot of brands do neglect that. A lot of big brands in particular do neglect that, and it's not just about responding to the consumers' questions. It's taking that question and going, why is that not answered in my product copy? Why is that not in my product title? You know, why is it not shown in an image? And you can by doing that, you can actually save yourself money. You can actually cut down the number of calls to your contact center, cut down the number of customer service emails, which in turn improves the response time, which in turn improves your customer service led KPIs, which in turn makes them come back. Because within the field that we work in, the products that we're offering, you think about the lifespan of that product. They're not fast moving consumer goods, they're not you know, it's not a weekly purchase, a monthly purchase. It's probably a 3, 4, 5, well, a lot of the products are 5-year warranty on them. If you're not replacing that product for 5 years, you've got to maximize that, you know, the lifespan of that customer, and that should be, for me, that should, particularly if your product isn't replaced often, that should be probably your biggest e-commerce metric, your customer lifetime value. And I think it's a massive neglected one, because there's only so many people in the territory that your site is targeting. There's only so many people searching for kettles or toasters, and there's only so many people that are going to buy that within that one time frame. You've not got an infinite pot of people to go at there, versus your competitors. So that's a massive metric that I think a lot of people miss, that lifetime value.
Brilliant, thanks Tracy. Alex, Sheppard?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, because obviously the cost of acquiring a new customer is generally a lot higher than keeping one. So I think it's desperately important that we do keep them engaged, you know, keep hold of them as best we can. I think Tracy's point about experienced content, you know, that's really interesting to me. It's an area where we've certainly seen a lot more interest, a lot more growth, as people are trying to give people reasons to come back to the sites beyond the initial purchase. And obviously, you know, the payoff, the hope is that they'll acquire again and again. And, you know, as things become more intelligent, things like artificial intelligence coming into platforms and so on, you know, it does enable you to be hyper personalized and targeted with what kind of products you surface where. And, you know, naturally, I think some people find it a bit of a turn off when irrelevant products are shown to them, but if they're really appropriate for what they're looking at, what they're doing on the site, I think most consumers these days are actually pretty appreciative of that, and it does deliver a better brand experience overall. I think for me, another area that's quite interesting is how people are utilizing things like loyalty programs. You know, I've seen an increasing number of people. I think the first person I spoke to about it was the MD of Ellis Brigham. For anyone who knows them, they're sort of generally ski wear, climbing wear, that kind of thing. And he actually had empowered his sales team to offer random acts of kindness to customers. So, you know, someone comes in, they've bought a spider jacket or whatever, he gave them the ability to go, why don't you just have the gloves or the hat or whatever that goes with it? And I thought that was really interesting. And as we enter a world where data, you know, on and offline is a lot more accessible and convergent, the reality is that we can use that to effectively score and understand people and maybe identify what might appeal to them. So certainly when we're talking to merchants about, you know, how they can utilize the rewards program, it's not simply, you know, pounds being prizes and, you know, X many pounds gets you X many points. Actually, sometimes that's more about just understanding who that customer is. So when they call up customer services to say, we've got an issue with this, they go, terribly sorry, not a problem, we'll help you through that. By the way, you're a really valued customer to us. How's about you have this as well? And you know, that goes through to things like, you know, the next topic where we're talking about sort of more conversational commerce and you know, understanding the consumer. I think the reality is that the data is there to enable us to really give them that much improved experience. Another area that again has called out to me that I've seen more and more brands engaging with is more of a subscription type model as well. You know, we've talked about experience, and convenience for me is quite a big part of that. And regardless of the sector, I think there are many areas where there are more and more consumables there. You know, Gap actually did an interesting one around baby clothing, where you could buy sort of baby Gap stuff, and they'll send the outfits as they grow and get older. I've had very similar conversations with Tommy Tippy, who make baby bottles. Obviously, they progress through different requirements there. Grow, who predominantly make grow bags, i.e. sleeping bags for babies. You know, particularly in those kind of sectors, or pet food or things like that. You know, it's really easy to come up with that model, and I think that just offers people the convenience that keeps their customers engaged and effectively prioritizes those existing customers to keep them coming back and checking in for more.
Cool, thanks, Alex. Simon?
I've muted myself. Yeah, I'm going to be very brief in this because we've massively overshot on this. We've got another subject to get through. So there's all sorts of lies, damn lies and statistics. And one that's often thrown around is a new customer is 7 times more expensive than an existing customer. And really need to drive that. That's such a compelling number around that. And it's not only prioritising those customers and making them feel loved. Somebody who's a customer who you don't service can be a pain, like I'm going to be right now. I loathe Virgin Media. I'm on Virgin Broadband, and their utter disdain for their customers it is just mind-boggling. And I can get away with it where I am because of the one broadband provider that's got fibre here, so the speed keeps me with it. But I guarantee you, as soon as there's another competitor with fibre in the ground who can get anywhere approaching that speed or half that speed, I will shift. And I've spoken to so many people about it. And this is such a valid point, you know, taking your customers for granted. They will badmouth you and they will go elsewhere. That's a huge risk there. But once you've got people there and you get to understand them, I still am bemused by some AI. I'm thinking, what made you think I wanted that piece of latex? Or is that just wish? It's still got a lot of refining to do, but there's so many products, you know, like digital, fresh relevance is really cool, all sorts of things like that that you can do just to make sure that your customer has things that interest them, but make sure you treat them as the human, as the person as well.
Cool, thanks, Simon. Alex?
Yeah, I'll be brief as well, but I think obviously retaining customers has been massively important for any merchant. I think we touched on a couple of things about reviews, and earlier on we were kind of talking about getting the experience right the first time so people come back again. I think the stat is something like 89% of consumers say they'll stop doing business with a brand after a bad experience. So 9 out of 10 times, if you've acquired a customer and you get it wrong, then they're not going to come back anyway. So you can prioritize existing customers, but I think you've got to get that experience right the first time around. And kind of following on from that, 77% of negative reviews, so 1 to 3 star reviews, are down to operational issues, not due to products. So if things are going to go wrong, the biggest likelihood is that it's something that's happened after the buy button has been pressed. The consumer knows what they're going to expect. They've done their research on the product. They know what product is going to turn up. But if the wrong product shows up, or they're paying for next day delivery and it didn't turn up on time, or they're buying something that's actually out of stock, it's only going to lead to disappointment, and that's only going to lead to that customer not coming back again. So I think clearly I'm pretty biased, but I think one of the things that you can do to prioritize your existing customers is just ensure that you've got that whole customer experience from the moment that someone is on your website to the moment that they get the products at your door, to think about that whole customer experience and make sure that it's kind of nailed that first time around. And that's what's going to keep people coming back time and time again, more than anything else, I think.
Agreed. Thanks, Alex. Right then, final topic of the session. Yeah, this again is quite an interesting one. So consumers thrive on experiences. I think we've all seen that the pandemic has forced retailers to ensure this is possible online. So 2 examples, TikTok and Instagram are both invested in commerce integrations with live streams. How can SMEs take advantage of this latest trend? Simon, let's start with you. Are you on mute?
So starting again, we've got Dan and Serge on from Confer with, who Alex Sheppard is introducing us to. And from what he's been saying, it's a really interesting piece in how you actually interact with that customer. And it almost feels like this kind of thing that's going to be enabled by what we've been doing over Zoom and Teams and so forth, in that you're going to have have some kind of engagement with a human being. I think you can look at it two ways. Somebody going through the shop and it's like, oh, I'm interested in this piece of clothing or this car, whatever. Okay, let's make it a real human interaction piece. And there's also that other piece as well where it's like putting it into streams as well. There is that thing of the moment, is that I want that. And I think that humanity piece is fascinating. I'm always a little cautious about being an early adopter of these things. I prefer to let other people make their mistakes, if you see what I mean, and not make the mistakes that they're making. But you're seeing so many interesting things happening. I'd like the blurring of the digital world and the real world, as it were, when I was talking previously about shops being experiential and going in there for fit and then having the stuff delivered to your door, almost like endless aisle type approaches as well, and then taking that virtual approach and putting it into the real world. So you've got that customer service exec, that shopper, that stylist, that fitter, or the person who's almost doing with the QVC kind of thing. And here's the latest beard I've had fitted. You can have one made for your size as well. So it's a fascinating space, and I'm just looking for those case studies of where it's worked and where can we sensibly deploy this, what's the cost associated with it. Looking at augmented reality at the moment, which is a fascinating space, and that's just starting to become affordable. I think I've seen a couple of things which are very, very interesting at the moment. There's a whole world of tech that makes digital and virtual sort of work. But one of the exciting things of the next 12 to 18 months, I think.
Great. Tracy?
I'm kind of on the fence about this one, because I remember talking to Simon about augmented reality back in like 2011, and I've kind of been there when we've been talking about Alexa voice search, voice purchases is going to be the next big thing, and I've been part of the SEO is dead crew and all the rest of it. She's off now, you see, I've set her off. I think these things take time, to build. I don't want to look like I'm kind of a little bit behind the times, it's all newfangled and all the rest of it. I mean, I've seen really good successes with it. My brother, he works for, he is a Google trusted photographer, and he's done work with some big brands, including Nike's flagship store in Tokyo. Whereby within their website, he's done all the where you walk in, you're using Google technology to walk around. Say it's the same technology, Street View. You walk around and he's built it up so you can actually touch a product, look at it, get all your product's detail information, and buy from within that virtual experience. And that's done very, very well for them, because they've got the money to throw behind the marketing of it. Essentially, it's kind of new, it's shiny. But then you get some brands that try it and it doesn't quite work for them. Maybe it's because they haven't got the kind of budgets that Nike have got, and Nike have thrown at it. So yeah, I think it remains to be seen. I think Simon's right. He'd like to see. We're a fast follow kind of business anyway. Remington, in particular, being a fast follow brand that tends to kind of, if Dyson bring out a really, really fancy, expensive hairdryer, we'll bring something out with similar technology, but a more maybe affordable price point. So yeah, I think it's easy for brands to go, got to do TikTok, we've got to do this, we've got to do that, and without really understanding why they're doing it. What are you getting from it? What is it you're trying to get from it? Because yeah, it's all very well and good wanting to do this, but have you got the fundamentals right? And this goes back to Alex's point about, if you're failing on, if you're not quite nailing the fulfillment piece, if you're not, one of the reasons why we're doing this digital transformation is not necessarily all about driving direct to consumer sales or e-commerce sales. It's actually about understanding the consumer better. For us, and that was what got it over the line with the senior stakeholders of the business, was more because if we don't understand our consumers, what the hell are we doing? What are we doing? How can we how can that drive new product development if we don't know that information? So you've got to, I don't really think you can kind of throw yourself into these things without having the fundamentals and the core things that are at that zero moment of truth. If you haven't got them, you know, your house in order with those first, you know, just wait, park it, fix those things first, because they're going to have a more of an impact on your business and be able to, you're going to be able to fuel and fund these things, you know, further on. But I do think it's something that's going to take time, because voice was going to be, you know, voice shopping was going to be the big thing in 2017. I'm still in here. I still haven't got an Alexa app yet for, you know, for any kind of, you know, we haven't got an Alexa skill or anything like that, because we need to get the fundamentals right first. And I think that's often missed with retailers maybe wanting to jump on the bandwagon a little bit.
Yeah, good points. All right, Alex Weston.
Yeah, I think there's been some really interesting points made on those fronts. I think just on the core level, just making sure that your channels have the right information in real time is probably a key thing. So if you're going to sell on social or Amazon or your own website or however it even works, it's also fast paced and transactional, that you want to have the right information, the right inventory. And so all of those stats that I throwed out before about disappointing your customers, you want to make sure that isn't going to happen, whatever channel they're going to purchase from. I think just on a high level, you know, it's really hard to know with social media what the latest trend is going to be and you know where people are going to be next. I mean, TikTok a year ago, maybe I'm just getting older, but I hadn't even heard of it. And I remember when Snapchat was all the rage, and that just fell down a cliff at one point as well. So, you know, it's hard to kind of keep up with these trends. And I think, you know, Tracy's point is kind of right, that it's you don't want to just jump to whatever's you know, the bandwagon and all of these things, because in the moment that you've invested a lot of time and effort in getting up and running on those channels, that the next moment you could be you could find that it's not quite the trend anymore, and there's something else that you need to run to as well. So it's definitely really important to make sure that these things are considered, but also I think just making sure that you've got the right infrastructure behind to ensure that you're still maintaining the customer experience, and the things that you want to fulfill and promise on whatever channel you sell on is going to be important with all of these different entertainment type experiences.
Yeah, I don't like that term.
Just on the live stream shopping thing, Amazon have been doing this for a while in the US, like a QVC type TV, where they give brands, you can buy, as part of their advertising packages, you can buy a kind of like a QVC style slot, and you can have influencers do it and from their Amazon influencer program and things like that, and that's been going now for some time. And usually what happens is, when Amazon do things like this and they bring these brand advertising newfangled things through, they trial it in the States, like Top Brands badge was another thing. They'll trial it in the States first, and then usually it rolls over the pond and then out to you know, the EU 7 as it is now, with the 7 marketplaces that they've got. They'll bring it to the UK and Germany, and then they'll roll it out to the rest. You tend to find that's how it works. But on this one, I haven't really heard as much as I thought I would about it. There's not been, you know, it's not come over here yet for release in the UK. So I am wondering whether it is as kind of as big. I mean, if Amazon are going to try and turn the hand to it, you'd expect them, you know, being quite good at e-commerce to be, you know, to be able to make that work. And it doesn't seem to have picked up. So maybe it is quite a slow burner, this one.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's very big in China. I think that's where a lot of the noise is coming from. But yeah, it will be interesting to see if it does make its way over here. Alex, Sheppard, any thoughts on that? You're on mute as well.
Thank you. You'd think we would have learned this one by now, wouldn't you? I think to Tracy's point earlier, yeah, it's really important you understand your market. Is it right for my customer? And I think that is the big question that people need to understand. For me, I find it interesting to think about how things do evolve over time. You know, the early adopters, you know, leading the charge, you know, they are the ones taking the risk. There are the challenges there. When I think about the sort of video commerce type arena, you know, we were looking at things like Go in Store probably about, must have been 5-6 years ago. We did that for Dawson's Music. You know, it was an interesting one for their market. Do you know what? It made a lot of sense because the value they could add their customer was in their knowledge, their experience, and their guidance. And it was a very assisted sell. And I was talking to a couple of people the other week, both of whom represent different furniture stores, predominantly in London. And actually for them, using Hero and Go in Store have been absolutely fantastic during lockdown, because while their online channels turn, the reality is that people wanted to get a feel for it. How is that going to look? How comfortable is it? You know, they wanted to engage with someone to understand things in a better level of detail. And at the risk of sort of pushing Dan and the Confer with.io crew a bit hard, you know, this is where it's quite interesting to me when Dan told me about their solution, building in the product feeds, to Alex's note, into that video channel, building in the basket, enabling people to, you know, on both sides of the fence, share things with each other, show them, direct them to a video, add to the basket, and integrating that fully into the commerce experience. For me, I think that is really interesting, assuming it's right for your brand, your market. And I think it is important that you don't jump in with both feet just to follow the crowd, because do you know what? People selling some things, they will never see the value in that. But if you're selling something complex where you need engagement, even the guys at Holland and Barrett I was talking to recently, you know, their expertise, their knowledge around general ailments and what you should be taking to help with certain things, you know, that's phenomenal. And the ability to incorporate that engagement into a shopping experience outside of the store, I think a lot of brands are going to see a lot of success with that over the coming year.
Thanks, Alex. Right, we got there. Thanks everyone that's stayed along. It's obviously gone on a bit longer than expected, but yeah, some really interesting topics there, really interesting conversation. I'm sure we'll probably make a couple of meetups out of a couple of those topics alone. Thank you, panelists. Great to have you all here. We had one question from Tom. I know he's dropped off now, but I may as well ask that question because I'm sure he'll want an answer. So he mentioned earlier, how do you guys see the issues of sustainability working in conjunction with the previous point around fulfillment? So I think he's referring to prime delivery, and that can often mean that deliveries may be transported in a less suitable way. Anyone want to answer that one?
I don't mind jumping in there. I mean,
Sure.
I think that you know, Amazon, another slight bugbear of mine, you can go on, you can order 5 things, all probably FBA, and they arrive in 5 separate packages with 5 different drivers. Would it not make more sense to actually combine them into one delivery? You know, categorically, I think that is something that people like that are going to have to really start thinking about. And for me as a consumer, if they gave me the option of, right, you've got, would you like to consolidate all deliveries for a given day into one delivery, I would check that box any day of the week. And I think that people need to start thinking about that. And I think we'll see more of a focus on that, as well as people pushing their credentials of, you know, let's say, you know, DPD drivers only drive electric vehicles. You know, again, thinking about that side of things, I think again we will start to see that sort of merge and become more of a prevalent trend.
Definitely. I was just going to say, I think that probably many merchants are kind of reliant on the channels that they fulfill through / the carriers to kind of provide some more of the sustainable credentials when it comes to these types of things. So whether that be electric vehicles through DPD or through Amazon, or kind of grouping orders together and things like that, a lot of that is going to be reliant on the carriers that they use to kind of get those orders to the door, basically. So I think there probably is there definitely is a strides to make in terms of making both the conjunction between convenience and sustainability and eco-friendly kind of practices closer together. But I think people are kind of more aware of it, for sure.
Yeah. I was just going to bump in there. I think a lot of, for me, the stuff that I might order off something like Amazon Prime, do I genuinely need it the next day? It's going to turn up the next day, fine. Do I need it? Almost never. If someone asked me the question, can we consolidate these 5 things and we will plant a tree for you? Yeah, absolutely. I'd do that. And the provider's probably going to make a bit of a cost saving, get a happier customer. So much stuff. I know in certain sectors it's compelling. I'm going out tomorrow night, I need a new top. Fine. Okay. A lot of stuff. Can I wait 5 days for it? No problem whatsoever. So yeah, if you're going to say I'll plant a tree as well, yeah, you got my business.
Yeah, I am seeing that more and more with Amazon now, from the shopping side, from a shopper side of things, that they are giving you the option to ship in less packages. So rather than next day, have it delivered in 2 days, but in less trips essentially. But again, that's Amazon all over, isn't it? They're giving consumers the option that they're never actually. It's never them taking responsibility and going, actually, this is how we're going to do it because we want to be more sustainable. We're only delivering it to you in 3 days because that's the most sustainable way. They're actually giving you the choice, and it's that fine line between how many consumers are you going to get that where sustainability is ever so important, or in reality are they clicking them to get to get deliveries in more boxes in an unsustainable manner. But going back to their as a vendor with Amazon, going back to their SIOC program, which is their shipping on container and their frustration-free packaging, they are pushing more and more of that those kind of issues onto brands, even though they're reaping the rewards from Prime. Like the shipping on container, you've got to have a certain amount of products that is SIOC certified, which basically means it doesn't go with an outer carton. SIOC is a shipping on container program, which means that your packaging has to be certified to a certain strength and things like that. And you as a business, you as a manufacturer have to pay for that. They don't pay for that, but if you don't comply, they will fine you. And you pay those fines, and I assume that goes into some sustainability part. Who knows with Amazon? But essentially, they push the responsibility, sustainability responsibility, despite their TV adverts. They're probably doing an awful lot, but they do push that more and more onto the brands that supply Amazon, over and above Amazon actually taking a proper responsibility for that.
Thanks, Tracy. Right then. Well, I think that's us wrapped up for the evening. I think we could probably have carried on for a few more hours, but I guess we need to stop. So thanks everyone that attended. Thanks for those that have continued with us, and hope to see you again very soon. Hopefully in person next time. We'll probably try and get another virtual event set up before the lockdown restrictions ease. As Simon's already mentioned as well, we're going to be posting a link to the recording of the meetup in due course. So that'll give anybody a chance just to revisit anything they want to. But I think that's us for now. So have a lovely evening. Thanks again, panelists and everybody who attended.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, guys.
See you.
See you.
See you in the bye.
Take care. Bye.